Hey there YouTube, Levi666 here. This is my last deck tech for the night. I've been saving the best for last. You knew I would. This is my favorite. Let's dive in, let's talk about this deck. This is the card I want to talk about, Possibility Storm. As soon as I saw this card, I got really excited and I was talking with one of my friends. I'm like, man, how can we break this card? How can we make this card really, really good in the format right now? Whenever you cast a spell from your hand, it gets exiled. So it's almost like Cascade, because then you exile cards from the top of your library until you exile a card that shares a type with that card. Type being enchantment, creature, instant, sorcery. Can't cast a land, so it can't be a land. And then you can cast that card without paying its mana cost. So a Pilgrim, an Avacyn's Pilgrim, can turn into a Thragtusk really quickly. Or some crazy creature. You know, Blind Obedience can turn into Omniscience. And these were the things that I was thinking about. I'm like, man, that's really awesome. And you can cast it for free. And then everything that got exiled that was pretty much shown with Possibility Storm, including the first spell you casted, just goes on the bottom of your library in a random order. So it's a lot like Cascade, except a lot more fun and interesting. But then I was reading about that ability. I'm like, man, it's like casting a second spell. And I'm like, I know a spell that doesn't let you cast a second spell. And I was looking at Curse of Exhaustion. Enchanted player can't cast more than one spell each turn. So you enchant them, and they're limited to one spell a turn. The first spell they cast from their hand gets exiled. So it gets around, like things like Unburial Rites, if it's in the graveyard, think twice, you know, some flashback stuff gets around this card. But I don't know, I mean, post if I'm wrong, but I can't think of anything that's destroy enchantment. Oops, sorry about that. That's destroy enchantment with flashback. So you're pretty much in the clear as far as this being a solid lockdown once it comes in. You put the curse on them, you play Possibility Storm, and your opponent cannot cast anything for the rest of the game. So once we came up with this and we saw this lockdown, I was like, man, how can we build around this? How can we make this the most competitive and best deck possible? And it's already locked down, so I was like, all right, we got to do control. So we got to throw blue in here. Let's make it red, white, and blue. Red, white, and blue is already a really popular control deck. So this can almost mimic it in certain ways since you're playing so many similar cards, but yet your win condition is completely different. So I did make this red, white, and blue, and let's dive in to the land base here. We just got full grips here. Full grip Sacred Foundry, full grips Clifftop Retreat, full Hallowed Fountain, full Glacial Fortresses, 4 Sulphur Falls, and we got 3 Steam Vents and a Lonely Plains because you don't want to get ghost quartered. You do not want this to turn into a wasteland for you, because that's a bad time, especially when you really, really need that mana and you really needed to do that board wipe. Alright, so let's dive into the typical tricks. We knew we were going to do blue-white typical tricks, so we got 4 Supreme Verdicts, 3 Terminus, and 2 Sphinx's Revelation. Now, what's important to note here, these cards right here are the only sorceries in the deck. And that's for a reason. Once you have your lockdown, if they are playing an aggro deck and you didn't get a chance to wipe the board, or they were able to get some tokens out, some leftovers out, and they're beating you to death with them, you want your Possibility Storm exile function to be as productive as possible. So with these being your only sorceries, whether you hardcast Terminus, Miracle Terminus, or hardcast Supreme Verdict, any board wipe will always be a board wipe. You will always Possibility Storm into a board wipe and get rid of those creatures. Moving on to the instants. Along with the Sphinx's Rev, I do realize that if you Possibility Storm into the Sphinx's Rev, it does absolutely nothing for you, and that sucks. But it doesn't matter. It's really just there to try to dig to find the combo if you haven't gotten the lock already. So once you have the lock, this card is irrelevant anyway, as well as all your other instants are pretty much irrelevant. 4, Think Twice to draw a card. You gotta dig. 2, Is It Charms. Just good flexibility here. To dig and discard, to counterspell, and to get rid of creatures that might have gotten past you after you've countered something else. I'm running 3 Essence Scatter main board because there's a lot of aggro out there, and creature spells seem to be the big problem against this deck. And there's 3 Blind Obedience, which not only help out against creatures, but the Extort can help whittle your opponent down in this game. And your overall win con is within these creatures. You got 3 Snapcaster Mage, 2 Aetherling, and 2 Azoria's Elocutors. I got into some really, really hairy situations where, I had an Aetherling and a Snapcaster in my hand, and I knew there was an Elocutors in my deck. And I'm like, man, how am I really want to get this Aetherling into play. How am I going to do this? And so I figured out, it's like, all right, well, if I cast the Aetherling, it gets exiled. And then I draw cards until I hit the Elocutors. That comes into play because it gets casted for free, and then everything else gets exiled to the bottom of my deck. Now the last card I got is Snapcaster Mage, because I was playing a mill deck, so these are the last cards that were left in my library. And so I got Snapcaster Mage in my hand, so now I cast that to Possibility Storm Cascade effect into Aetherling and get that into play. And so there's some really tricky methods of getting these cards into play as your win con. I did screw around. There was a really cool idea that I was screwing around with Tybalt. I finally found a use for Tybalt, because with Possibility Storm, you could cast him for 2, and you could cast something like Nicol Bolas for free, and do it like really early on. If you just played if you didn't accelerate, you just played Possibility Storm turn 5, and then turn 6 you Tybalted into Nicol Bolas. That's a pretty badass move, and that's gonna devastate your opponent. But I didn't like that, the randomness of it. We know with Nicol Bolas you need to ultimate multiple times in order to win, and I just found Aetherling was a really awesome creature. Snapcaster Mage being able to hit cards from your graveyard and flash those back to get around the Possibility Storm effect is very helpful for us in the long term. And the Elocutors, if you already get your lock and this is in play, you just filibuster them out, and that's a really solid way to win. In the sideboard, I'm kind of fooling around with some counter spells. I still, like I said, I put an Essence Scatter right now because I see a lot of creatures. Feel free to leave your 2 cents, but I've been screwing around with Counterflux and Render Silence. I got 3 Negates. We got 3 Detention Spheres, 2 Divine Reckoning for just lateral creature occurrence. If I feel like I need a lot more board wipe presence. And once again, if you notice, this is a sorcery, so board wipes will always hit board wipes. The 3 Rest in Peace and a single Ghost Quarter, because I'm going to Ghost Quarter somebody else if I get the chance and I don't see any basic lands come out. Because that's a wasteland. If they don't have any basic lands on their deck and they're playing full grips of shocks, why not take advantage of that and be able to wasteland them for fun? Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed this deck tech. Comment, rate, subscribe, and we are going to set up here, I'm going to set up here, and I'm going to talk about the contest that I am going to host for you guys. I had a couple requests for one of these, and I have some leftover materials and some goodies that I want to give away to you guys. I'm feeling generous. My birthday's coming up in July, and I just want to, just get rid of some stuff that I got laying around. Alright guys, I hope you enjoyed these standard videos. I hope you enjoyed this really awesome lockdown deck. Like I said, I'm going to be playing this almost every weekend, at my Friday Night Magic. I'm going to turn some heads, and people are going to be going crazy trying to figure out how to stop this deck. And if you guys want to, build your own version of this, or if you think of some really cool combos of ways to bounce into giant creatures or ridiculous enchantments, because I was thinking of a way to win with Omniscience and Out of the Infinite and Lab Maniac, but then that's relying on so many cards to win, and that's why I keep falling back. Aetherling is one card. Aetherling by itself wins games. You can swing for 8 damage alone with him, because you already got a ton of mana out anyway. 8 damage every turn is huge. That puts him on a 3-turn clock. That beats Esper Mill's mill plan once he's in play. And then Drown Yard, fuck Drown Yard. Alright guys, like I said, enjoy, comment, rate, subscribe. Stay tuned. Peace.